Have you seen this? I think it was a story you might have heard in Sunday school.
Welcome to Have You Seen This?
The world's only podcast about obscure, overlooked, and misbegotten media.
All discussions will be spoiler heavy.
You have been warned. Yeah, because, it's biblical, it's fun, it's all canon, it hews pretty closely to the source material, that's good. And I think that's why people didn't like it.
It's Old Testament and New.
Yeah, we got both testaments.
Yeah.
Good and bad.
Tim is actually Orthodox Jewish.
I'm not much of a reader. No, it's funny because as an atheist, I think some of this went over my head. I'm not as tuned into it. That might have been the problem.
Why do you say that?
Let me see what my notes have to say about that.
Let me read my own thoughts back to you.
Yeah, let's see. What did Fully Awake Tim have to say about this? I think, just maybe not seeing things from a religious point of view. Like, partly because here's the thing. You've got the two characters. You've got, him and her, he and she, us and them. I'll get to that in a minute. You've got the couple that lives, in this idyllic, remote location, and it's nice. And I'll tell you why it's nice is because there are no people there.
It's a paradise, if you will.
A paradise, that gets lost, so to speak. There's, but here's the thing. So she does a nice job of going about her business, doing the chores, keeping a tidy home. Things are running smoothly. Doesn't have people messing up the joint. Doesn't have interlopers, disrespectful people upsetting her nice routine.
People who take and take and take when she does nothing but give.
Oh, I know. So, sure as night follows day, one season turns into another. We've got a nice little routine here. The problem, though, is the guy. The guy, he's bored. He's not inspired. He's got no one to, bounce ideas off of. And,
True.
He's at a loose end. He needs something. He needs something going on. He can't just hang out the way, she is perfectly content to.
He needs a hobby.
He needs a hobby. And so he invents mankind.
Whoopsie.
And the thing that I didn't initially, grok is because, he's a writer, he's a poet. What his word, his word carries some weight. People pay attention
word,
to that.
if you will.
The word, yeah. So, someone who's not tied up into religiosity so much, though the one thing that I didn't hook onto is that it's like, look, the guy just wrote, a couple of lines, he wrote a poem, and it's like, how can just the written word inspire such fanaticism in these people? I'm like, well, Tim, let me introduce you to the world at large. So,
Tim, that sounds like a really interesting movie, and certainly not one that would offend people to a ridiculous degree. What movie are you talking about?
I'm talking, of course, about Antichrist. No, wait. I'm talking about Darren Aronofsky's, third or fourth or fifth film, Mother! Yes.
Yes, which you and I both saw in the theater and really liked. And then once you start talking to people, you find out that there were a lot of people who disliked this movie or were incredibly offended by it, to a histrionic degree. And it might surprise you to learn that some of those people were religious people.
Not very good religious people, obviously, because it seems like they don't really internalize any of the lessons that they're supposed to.
Wow, that's how unlike Christians.
I know. It's an unfortunate smear, but here we are.
Yeah, and the whole reason I went to see this movie in the theater, because it's usually kind of hard to dislodge me from wherever I'm, glued barnacle-like at the moment.
Yeah.
And go to a movie theater. But I saw a review of this in noted white supremacist mag, the National Review.
All right. It was in the arts section.
Yeah, such as it is. And I read it and I said, Tim, let's go see this fucking movie, because it's going to be a banger from this review. And funnily enough, this review was written by Kyle Smith, and we have talked about Kyle Smith on the podcast before. I believe it was Will Miniker's first appearance on the show. Mm-hmm. And we briefly talked about Kyle Smith's New York Post article about the movie Goodfellas, in which the thesis of his article was that women are incapable of understanding the movie Goodfellas.
What kind of awful women does he hang out with?
He writes for the National Review and the New York Post.
Right, I guess
your mind doesn't have to roam very
question,
far.
Yeah. Well, maybe he hangs out with trad women who are just like, I don't like boy stuff. Mm-hmm. I just like my kids and God and the Bible and not paying any taxes. I don't know.
Yeah, that kind of that expression of gender in which you kind of cover up the howling insecurity at the core of your being by defining yourself as this and not that. And it's very strictly binary, and never the twain shall meet. And that's how you get takes in major newspapers like, women can't understand Goodfellas because at its heart, Goodfellas is a movie about guys having friends.
And it was such a breakthrough at the time. I don't think anyone had made a movie where it's where
people had a social group relationships with other people.
Well, it's where we got that pop culture phenomenon, the Scorsese test, where two men talk to each other in a scene about something other than a woman. First time that ever been done. That's what made his reputation. He was just kind of a not really well-known B-movie director up until that point.
Yeah, Boxcar Bertha. I mean, like, what even is that?
And, I know. This is Roger Corman level shit that he's doing. Come on.
Yeah, and I was gratified. When the thing is with. Scorsese is such an important filmmaker because it was like men had never had a voice in cinema, movies.
Right? I know, yeah.
Yeah, and he finally made like male movies for men, which was so critical.
Yeah, it's like a Catherine Bigelow, but for dudes.
Exactly. Yeah. So, good take, Kyle. You're stupid, but anyway, you can tell that, Kyle's a guy with like really good ass opinions on movies. So, of course I was going to take his review of the film very seriously. The subhead on this movie says, Mother, an exercise in torture porn, may be the vilest movie ever released by a major Hollywood studio.
Yeah, so take that, Cannibal Holocaust.
And here's the big tell. Deliberately grotesque and nauseating and seemingly engineered to outrage Christians, especially Catholics, Mother represents a stain on the reputation of Paramount Pictures, which once produced Going My Way. Of course, the movie with Bing Crosby.
The street hustler,
playing, a priest. And priests are unimpeachable. So, but
exactly.
Now, I had actually forgotten about the kind of direct slam on Catholics in this movie, but which was actually
that they eat
yes,
a baby?
I was, and I cackled with delight because I was like, that is so good.
It is, yeah.
And I think you and I talked about this over text, and in fact, like one of our followers on Twitter like kind of made a similar point, and it's like Christians get so mad when people like depict the Bible on screen like in a way that shows what it actually fucking says.
Yeah, it's like, hey, this is your book. Like, these are your stories.
Yeah.
What's your problem?
Yeah, and, when you point out, like, kind of a lot of the implications of, blood and body of Christ, like, they get really pissy.
Right. Yeah, they don't like having their sort of blood religion sort of thrown back at them.
Their idolatrous rituals and depravities.
Right, yeah. Yeah, their metaphorical cannibalism.
Yeah, and it's very funny to see like someone like caping for Catholics in this way. Is like, oh my, like how could they have made this movie where a child is sacrificed? And it's like, well, let's take a look at the Catholic Church's record on children.
Right, yeah, that's the other thing. And also, I mean, the unfortunate irony in all this is that who is this guy?
Kyle Smith.
Richard Feynman?
Yeah,
whatever. Yeah, Carl Smith. So he... the unfortunate thing is that he, I assume, styles himself as a religious person. And the tragic irony in all of this is that the people who most need to hear this message are the ones, I feel, who are most intolerant against it. The ones most closed-minded to hearing what the movie has to say. When the movie is affirming of everything that they should believe, I mean, according to how they posit themselves, they should see this movie and be like, yeah, I understand exactly what you're saying, but to have it explained to them, I don't know, it's like, you're twisting my words, that's not what I meant, but it's like, this is exactly what you're saying. Like, it's it's frustrating because the message is so it's kind of like when we're talking about Into the Void, it is kind of that I'm trying to sugarcoat that poison pill, because Into the Void is a movie where the main character dies, but it is framed in a way that it's about life and death and rebirth. You can't just be like, oh, this is an awful slog. But in the same way that in that same way, Mother is presenting these uncomfortable topics in a way that is trying to get you to engage with them. Because ironically, if any of what it's saying is just sugar-coated or glossed over, you walk away with that movie, thinking and internalizing nothing from it. It has to be so overt and, grotesque and troublesome and shocking, like this reviewer regarded it, to actually get its message across. Because if you see these things and you're like, oh, it's pretty bad, but, things turn out okay and, it's not so bad, then you completely miss the point of the movie. And the point of the movie is that these are all things that happen in our world. And to be presented with them in this allegorical way is ultimately horrifying. And that's what the viewer is supposed to walk away from this movie having felt. Or at least that's the way, that's what I got out of it. Is that, yeah, it's supposed to be disturbing. It's supposed to be troubling because these are actual things.
Yeah, and especially because, another read that you could take of the film is kind of the unending cyclical nature of, like, misogyny and patriarchy and female suffering. And, there was just kind of one of the Twitter main characters of the day today, as we're recording this, was someone who was... some guy who was super pissed off about the new, like, Game of Thrones spin-off show, House of the Dragon on HBO, where he was horrified by a depiction of a woman being mutilated in childbirth, basically being subjected to a cesarean that will kill her. And... yeah,
that came up in the 2X chromosome subreddit as well.
Well...
yeah, it's like... yeah, it is just,
I mean, like,
smooth brains, like, unable to engage with complex media.
Yeah, like, what do you, I mean, there's a reason that I muted that subreddit, because it's like, okay, like, we're past, I think we're past the third wave, and we're certainly past, like, defining ourselves by our chromosomes. Like, try to keep up. But,
yeah, I mean, it does attract a certain kind of simplistic mindset. If it is, I define myself by my chromosomes, then yes.
Yeah, and that's how you get TERFs.
Right.
So
yeah, but more than that, my takeaway from this, like, guys, I was totally upset by media that presented an upsetting topic. It's like, yeah, that's kind of why we tell stories. It's to remind ourselves of the world around us.
And storytelling is so important to this film because part of the reason that the him of this movie delights in his creation so much is he loves their stories.
Right. Yeah, there's definitely a disconnect between the motivations of him and her in this movie, and you see like the central problem between the two of them is, and again talking about just like really simplistic reactionary misappraisals of this movie. I think it was Jen. Was it the two Jakes that pointed out like the extreme disparity in the ages of the male and female leads?
Right. Well, that was like one of many.
It got like yeah. Well, it got like I forget exactly. It got like a Razzie or something from like the Association of Female Journalists or something.
Oh, right. It was yeah.
Yeah, which I mean, fair, because that's sort of, it is yes, it is pointing out that there's a gulf, a disparity in what age a male actor is still bankable versus what age a female actress is still not dried up and used up and just awful and wasted. So that is something that culturally is on people's minds, and like I said, a misinterpretation of this movie is to be like, oh, I can't believe it's so sick that Javier Bardem is so old, and Jennifer Lawrence she's like in her 20s or something, and just like, oh, so it's so sick and gross that she, of course, the woman has to be young, they can't be similar ages. Again, the irony being, it is completely appropriate for this disparity within their relationship. I mean, even if you understand, oh, by the way, to spoil the movie, this is an allegory about God and the earth. Mm-hmm. I don't know if anyone already knew that.
Well, as most of us know, the earth is only 6,000 years old.
Right, yeah. And God, this like idea, this concept of God, apparently, like this made up like fantasy character like in D&D, apparently like that character is like super old, like older than the earth, like old as time itself.
Yeah, yeah. Wild.
Older than first edition D&D. So like, and the disparity between these two totally fits that one of them is like old and powerful and resilient, and the other was kind of like young and naive, because the difference is that the guy in this, he's kind of careless because he's basically invincible. Mm-hmm. Like, no one can touch him. The world loves him. He can do whatever he wants. He can work however much or however little. He's got sort of deity privilege.
Oh God, that's like such a good insight, because it's true.
Yeah,
like he
right.
Yeah, damn. Like, he is essentially immortal.
Yeah.
And
yeah, it's like I am like I exist everywhere in all things.
Yeah, and also, like, and I think what you were talking about really sparked for me is the the way the character is, and is like, oh yeah, like, because he is like a little bit of a careless kind of self-absorbed guy, because it's like, what does he have to really worry about?
Yeah, like, he doesn't have anything to worry about, and that's the disconnect, because she does. Like, he treats her like, you know, hey, like, you're invulnerable in the same way I am. You don't have anything to worry about, but he just doesn't get it.
He doesn't, yeah. Yeah, and, you know, as you know, God to, like, an organic creation, like, yes.
Yeah, she's a subservient creation of his that is, you know, subject to his other creations. Like, he's above the fray, so in that way, like, you know, he can afford to be careless because none of this stuff really affects him, and he doesn't understand that, yes, it does affect her, because she isn't as ancient and powerful as he is. Which, again, fits. That's why you have, you know, craggy-faced, you know, Javier Bardem versus the chick from Hunger Games.
And you can't have patriarchy without a patriarch.
Exactly. There it is. So, yeah, Tim discovers patriarchy on this episode of Have You Seen This?
The awakening of Tim.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, and... you know, like I alluded to at the beginning of the episode, like, this movie was fairly controversial, certainly divisive. And the reason that we decided to talk about it was because I don't know why it's been happening lately. I don't know if maybe this movie is on streaming right now and people were watching it again out of curiosity. I did go to look at... when I was researching the film and kind of, you know, refreshing my memory on some of the extreme reactions to it, I discovered an IndieWire article about it, which was written shortly after the movie was released, and an article which seems to be convinced that this movie is going to be like a massive flop. And interestingly, this movie did not flop. It actually made like a decent amount of money, especially considering that it didn't do so hot in its first week, and I think that was why I was like, "Oh boy, here it comes, like a big bomb from Aronofsky." But it didn't quite work out that way. It seemed to kind of intrigue people enough that, you know, people did go to see it. But people are still like angrily commenting on this IndieWire article about it, like up through like November 2021.
Wow.
To the point where, like...
It's got legs.
Yeah, and, you know, that is fascinating to me because, like, how many movies, like, motivate people to the degree where they're like, they call it... I mean, this top comment on it is someone saying that this is a satanic child sacrifice movie.
Read a fucking book.
A movie in which the devil does not appear.
Yeah, this is about humanity.
And there was another
dumb bastard.
There was another one that I sent. There was another comment which I screen capped and sent to Tim, in which the person insisted that the yellow liquid that Jennifer Lawrence is drinking in the movie is actually urine, and that's how one is admitted to the upper echelons of Hollywood
of the Illuminati.
Okay, and because Jennifer Lawrence is like a huge star, well paid. You know, she's done her cape shit movies, but she's done interesting stuff as well. So she's definitely in like the upper tier of like, you know, depraved Hollywood assholes. I don't think she got there by drinking piss.
No, that was I can say definitively that is Inca Cola. That is the bubblegum flavored soda from South America. Yeah, it's the only product placement.
Yeah, and interestingly, Aronofsky actually did talk openly about the allegories of the film and like what he was actually getting at, but he refuses to say what the yellow fluid is. So maybe it is piss, who knows? But
yeah, just injecting his fetish. It's like, you know, a shot of bare feet in a Tarantino movie. Like if he does it 2 more times, we know Aronofsky has a piss drinking fetish.
Yeah, or you know, to go back to the the example of Catholicism, like just incredibly protracted bloody violence in a Mel Gibson film.
Yeah, that's how Mel gets off.
I mean, like, maybe for all I know, Mel Gibson saw this movie and was just like, yeah, I would have put in like lots more gore.
Yeah, he's like weak, lame. He's like, I ate a baby on the way over here. Don't try to shock me.
Now that's how you get.
Oh shit! Yeah,
that's how you get to the top in Hollywood. Like, how do you think he got the Lethal Weapon movies?
Yeah, he
split a baby with Danny Glover.
A good, right.
Actually,
but
Danny
he's
Glover
a good Catholic.
Cool.
He does not. Yeah, right. Yeah, he doesn't eat human flesh on Fridays.
He gets a Filet-O-Fish meal on Fridays.
Right, for the fillet.
Mm-hmm. But like I was saying,
live fish.
Like I was saying,
it's a cruel, barbaric practice that McDonald's should outlaw it. But anyway,
I do enjoy Filet-O-Fish every 6 months or so. I get like a wild hair, and I just go get a Filet-O-Fish meal.
Yeah.
Not because of
mercury in your diet.
Yeah, not because of residual Catholicism or anything. I just really like those shitty little fish patties and the American cheese.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. We all have our vices, but like I was saying, this movie.
Have you seen that sponsored by the Dollar Menu that hasn't existed in 12 years?
If this show were sponsored by any sort of McDonald's menu item, it would be 24-hour breakfast. Because to me, that is a mark of like the height of civilization, is being able to get breakfast items whenever the fuck I want.
Jen, this is why we need to eat before we record. Because, I mean, just like a stack of pancakes or just like some crispy bacon. Or even the newborn child. I would eat that.
Body of Christ, Tim.
Yeah. Oh, man, just those tender little bones. You just snap them between your teeth.
You, well, yeah, in your quote unquote faith, like you do the Eucharist, right? Or you did?
Yeah, you get free pita bread and you get to drink wine.
Yeah, which is really cool when you're like 8.
Yeah, and you're like, wine tastes awful. I'm certainly not going to drink this by myself in my darkened apartment.
Little did you know. But like I was saying, This movie was incredibly polarizing to the point where I was like, yo, what the fuck? And in fact, I did set up a couple of polls on the podcast account, that's HYST Pod on Twitter, because I was curious. I was like, how do people feel about, not just Mother, but also Aronofsky? And on the topic of Aronofsky, the He's Great option got 57%. Mm-hmm. He Sucks got 24%. And Other, Please Reply got 19%. And
that's good. That's good engagement.
And I'll say this, and I am someone who will defend Aronofsky because, like, of the films of his I've seen, I've really enjoyed. A friend of the show, Jive Master J, says he's very much a style over substance director, but he occasionally manages to make things with good enough source material that it transcends his limitations. Parenthetically, The Wrestler ripping off Beyond the Mat equals his best movie. And a lot of the replies, in the other category were kind of the same thing. Like, he can be a little bit shallow or obvious, but he's not a director that you would write off completely. And that's actually a point of view that I can respect. There was one show listener who just said he sucks and I hate everything he's ever done, which is fair. Like, that is allowed.
It can't please everyone.
Yeah. I see you and I hear you. And the response to Mother was, and I was really expecting to, actually, it kind of broke down similar to the breakdown on Aronofsky himself. The question, if you saw Mother, what did you think of it? And the first option was what Matt Chrisman said to me the first time I met him and I mentioned the film. He said, "Oh, whip sack." And personally, that is the opinion I hold.
I think that's the one thing that we don't see in the movie.
You got to watch a Bond film for that kind of thing.
Okay, yeah, I guess Bond
So
did.
57%.
Ba-da-da-da.
57% of the people who voted agreed with me and Matt Chrisman that it indeed whips Sack. 25% thought it was okay. 18% said it sucked, which again, it's allowed.
That tracks, yeah.
But personally, and I may be wrong, you can correct me, Tim, but am I correct in feeling that you also believe that it whips Sack?
Right, yeah. I mean, you went to it purely out of spite for some dickhead who writes for National Review.
I also liked Black Swan, so I was like, maybe this will be good too.
Right, yeah, but I mean, I was like fully on board, since Pi, when he made Pi for like less money than it cost to make Primer, and then, God, what did he do after that? Because I didn't see Noah, which I, understand is the one to miss. I didn't see...
A lot of people like that movie, though.
Yeah, what, The Fountain?
Oh, The Fountain, yeah.
Yeah, which apparently that one is also worth missing. But Requiem for a Dream, I mean, notable not only for bringing, Clint Mansell and Kronos Quartet to the fore, because that soundtrack is really something else. A lot of great actors, a lot of great performances in that. It's a great story, and like one of our, followers mentioned, it's based on, a strong literary work. So already, Requiem for a Dream, like, helped elevate my already high esteem of him. Then, he follows it up with The Wrestler, which is a small movie, but with, a lot of pathos and heart. And topless Marissa Tomei, let's not forget.
And also an interesting example of the kind of rare subgenre of film, which is about male suffering.
Yeah, and that is so well cast, because it isn't just, it's got Aunt May, the chick from My Cousin Vinny in it, but, it's got has the perfectly cast, Mickey Rourke, who, like earlier was a much more beautiful man, and now has become what he is now, which is perfect for the character. So he does that, and that is just, a pitch perfect movie. And I saw it with this conniving cheapskate bitch that he used to work with.
Oh God, I think I know who this was. Yeah,
exactly.
She's a cunt.
Yeah, so she sucks. But yeah, I saw that with her, and she's like, well, does he die at the end? And I'm like, that's not the point. The point is he went the distance. Like, whether he, sticks the landing and makes a comeback, or whether he dies on the mat, he was a wrestler until his, dying day. Like, he committed, that is legit kayfabe, like, at its heart.
Yeah, like, I saw people online talking about how Bret the Hitman Hart like still hasn't forgiven Goldberg for breaking his neck basically and ending his career, and there were people in this is on Reddit or some shit, maybe Squared Circle, but people in the replies were like, well, like, what about Bret wrestling like a whole 8 other matches like after that match? And it's like, fair point, but like that really sums up like the brutality and masochism of pro wrestling, much as Black Swan really captured like the brutality and masochism of ballet.
Yeah, it's the wrestler for girls.
Exactly. It's a lady wrestler.
Yeah,
like Rhea Ripley. It's a lady wrestler. But
yeah, that ballet diet of coke and cigarettes.
Right, and the mortification of the body, the weird relationship with food, like the awful mother, the predatory head of the company, like it's it's all there.
Yeah.
And
that's what Vincent Cassel again from Irreversible.
Yes. And Mr. Monica Bellucci for a while, but
right, yeah.
Now, there is a little bit of contention about, and I do want to get back to Requiem for a Dream. I think everybody is still like 100% on board with The Wrestler. It might be Aronofsky's like best loved film, just going off what I've seen online.
Yeah, and it's got Dolores as the daughter in it too.
Yeah, and I do. Oh yeah, Evan Rachel
What is
Wood.
her name? Evan Rachel Wood. Yeah.
And I do want to get back to Requiem for.
So well cast.
I do want to get back to Requiem for a Dream, but I do want to say this about Black Swan because there is some contention about it, and I am sorry that I wasn't able to confirm this for the listeners because I had a very busy day, so I wasn't able to get around to.
Had kind of a big day. Yeah, sorry.
So I wasn't able to confirm what people say about Black Swan is that it just it either pays tribute to or rips off Satoshi Kon's Perfect Blue, which...
You know what it really rips off? This is ballet called Swan Lake.
You can't rip that shit off. Tchaikovsky's dead, and it's in the public domain.
I don't know. Like, there are a lot of... I mean, even down to the animal. Like, you couldn't make it like a duck or something?
Yeah, okay. So anyway, a lot of people say that... well, I think it depends on whether you like or dislike Aronofsky. If you believe he was paying tribute to Perfect Blue or was ripping it off. I believe at some point he secured the rights to the film so that he could either pay tribute to it or rip it off, depending on your POV.
Perfect Blue is about like a ballerina who goes nuts.
Now, it's about an idol singer who's being stalked. And a movie which I loved when I saw it. I haven't fucking seen it since 1998. I will revisit it maybe tonight, in fact.
If only had some excuse to watch obscure movies. I don't know.
I mean, and no disrespect to Satoshi Kon because I've liked his other work as well. I would be interested to kind of make that comparison, and like I feel that I would be remiss if I didn't, kind of mention the controversy. But we'll keep you up to date on that. So going back to Requiem for a Dream, I've noticed that for a movie which was pretty universally acclaimed when it appeared, like there does seem to be a little bit of a turning of the tide against it, because I'm seeing more and more people say like, oh, well, that movie actually sucks. And full disclosure, I've never seen all of Requiem for a Dream, so I am not going to offer my own opinion on it. So I can't tell you if, I agree or not that it's actually like trash or whatever. And I'm sure like you could make valid arguments as to whether or not it sucks, but
I mean, anyone who thinks Requiem for a Dream has shit for brains, but I will say that I will allow the possibility.
That's the bad cop I know and love.
Right, yeah. That like a lot of movies that we've reviewed recently, like or movies by I think anyone listening is starting to get a picture of what kind of directors we fuck with. Lars von Trier, Darren Aronofsky, Gaspar Noé.
Trolls.
They're all of a particular kind where it's like they can go up to a limit, and like if they go past that limit, I know for me, spoken as I have before on the podcast, at this point you're just like, oh, fuck off with your cynical bullshit. Like, you've orchestrated this whole thing. You've made these characters make these dumb decisions and be, complete garbage human beings just so you can get your point across that, Lars, you're upset about something or you're sad and you want to like work this out through your movie. Like sometimes they can just put like a little too much on there. And that's the point where directors who I normally, love their work, like they can go a little far and I'll be like, yeah, okay, sure, yeah. Oh, Gaspar Noé, you're so in my face. Oh my God, another kid died. Gee, that's so tragic. That's like, I realize it's like, yeah, you're just trying to push my buttons, you fucking troll. I haven't gotten to that point with Aronofsky, but I have a feeling that some people might have a lower threshold for that kind of bullshit than I do.
Well,
and they might see a movie like Requiem for a Dream, and by the end they're just like, oh, come the fuck on.
Sure. And my understanding of Requiem for a Dream is it's people kind of sinking pretty far into degradation, which, we love that kind of thing on this show.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Like we enjoy getting down into the muck. But
yeah, why not?
The way that you put it about people reacting maybe to or the way that you put it about how you might react to a director kind of going over the line and really, rubbing your nose in it. I really feel like that's the way a lot of people felt about Mother, because apparently, people found the biblical allegory just thuddingly obvious.
Oh, I mean, yeah, that gets back to my, atheism. Like, there's a point where I'm like, oh, okay, so they're two sons and one kills the other one. All right, so this is like an allegory. But who are these two central characters? That's me, like, just like taking the movie at face value.
And at long last, we see the knock-on effects of Tim getting kicked out of Sunday school as a child.
Well, yeah, me also not being particularly savvy.
Yeah, he learned about Cain and Abel from the Sandman comics, so
right, yeah,
you can see why he's playing catch up.
Yeah, I mean, I have a broad taste in literature. I mean, I think it's by the credits where I'm like, oh, it was an allegory.
Right, and it's like, okay,
I'm not sharp.
Well, but let me say this, because when we watched it, I also kind of watched it like on a surface level, because one of the things which Aronofsky has absolutely been 100% clear about is that the movie has a strong environmental message. I mean, it's right there in the fucking title. Mother. Who's our mother? Right. It's Gaia. So right from the beginning, I get it. You have Jennifer Lawrence waking up in her bed. She reaches for her husband. He's not there. She calls out, baby.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And she's very obviously tied to the organic and the earthy. Earth. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I really vibed with the movie in that respect, because it's also not hard to get the message about kind of like human despoilment of the environment, like our carelessness, our thoughtlessness, our general lack of any kind of regard for our home, which is fucking funny, because it's like it's the only one we've got. I mean, Javier Bardem's character can make another one. Like, he don't give a fuck.
Yeah,
it's like, where the fuck are we going to go? And it hit me, even though, like, I was watching today with the biblical aspects, like, firmly in the forefront of my mind, the environmental message resonated more strongly than ever with me.
Yeah, that was my main takeaway from it, as a person, who doesn't really engage with religion. And the other point, because so we were talking about earlier about people being like so thuddingly obvious. One thing that I think they could these hypothetical audience theater goers could take issue with is that something that I actually really responded to in the movie is that the people in here are just such impertinent cunts.
Right.
Like, and 201, it's like these people are awful.
Yeah, and it is kind
walking around like they own the place. But
yeah, because and part of the reason why this movie had my heart in my throat a little bit was that lack of care and kind of the irony of it, where it's like, and it's reflected in the larger culture where we, you have people saying like, oh, the climate change is not real, whatever, like it doesn't fucking matter, like who cares? And it's like, okay, bro, where the fuck are we gonna go? If we destroy this place, where are we gonna go? And that's where you have like, the Elon Musk who are like, well, just fucking move to Mars. It's like, yeah, because that'll happen. Like, sure, good luck with that.
Yeah, something like, what was that tweet? Like, Elon Musk wants to make Mars more Earth-like. Like, motherfucker, why don't we make Earth more Earth-like?
More Earth-like. Yeah, it's enraging. And right. I felt that so strongly watching this film, and it's also part of why okay, like, people can like what they like, but I do get a little bit confused by people who react with such strong antipathy to it. And I'm not talking about, people who are mad that they were mean to Catholics, because, like, fuck those people's opinions. But,
right, yeah.
I mean, people who watched it were just like, God, that movie is garbage. Like, what a piece of shit. Like, it fucking sucked. And it's like, really? Like, Aronofsky swings for the fences and you're just gonna, like, take a big shit on it? Because, like, technically, this movie is pretty incredible. The performances are great. Jennifer Lawrence, especially, being the titular character and all. And the way that Aronofsky all but puts you in her head, like the movie is so subjective to her point of view entirely. Our sympathy is so entirely with her that it really does, like, and that might also be a reason why people have such strong reactions to it, is because it's like an emotional ringer. Like, I'd already seen it, and in the theater, it was like a hell of an experience. And I was very like, my emotions were really like, turned up to 11 watching it, because you're like, oh my God, like, these fucking people coming into our house. Like, even on a superficial level, like, it's the anxiety and the terror is like right there. But
yeah, the story does such a great job of both personifying, Mother Earth, and also making her sympathetic as this sort of, innocent, young ingenue that is being taken advantage of by people who just do not give a fuck about her.
Yeah, and her, she so effectively portrays like a vulnerability without being fragile. I mean, it's like she's like someone who is, because like, as a representative of Gaia, she has like this incredible core of strength and resourcefulness, but she's also, there's like a delicacy to her, which is not weakness. It's really hard to explain, but she embodies that really well.
It's like, if you're respectful in her home, there's no problem. But it's like, the first man comes in and he brings fire, when it's like, can you not smoke in here? But it's like, no, he's gonna smoke, because who's gonna tell him no?
Right. And just as an aside, like our Adam and Eve couple, Ed Harris and Michelle Pfeiffer. Like,
the man in black from Westworld and Catwoman's mom. Yeah, I'm like, oh shit, it's Ed Harris. Don't trust him. Don't let him in.
Yeah, but like, as an aside, like, that characterization of Adam and Eve as like immature adults.
Well, they're I don't know, hedonists, if nothing else. They're like, we kind of like going around and doing our thing, and we like to smoke and drink, and we like to make out, and
and also
just, our base urges.
Yeah, and they're products
of we want.
They're products of a single dad, in a way.
Well, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, because
absentee father. Yeah.
It's not like she is like, she doesn't fucking know these people from a hole in the ground. They were just created by her husband and like let loose, and their reactions are to any kind of pushback from their hosts, or like it's great because it's really disquieting, because you have Ed Harris and Michelle Pfeiffer, who are mature human beings, and when they're caught like breaking stuff, or just like fucking like in like a room that's just with an open door, they're just like, well, we said we were sorry. Right. And it's just like kind of like the sullen childishness of it. And that, in comparison to Javier Bardem's character, like his embodiment of the Lord, especially like the Old Testament God, who is like a pretty like callous and self-centered being.
Yeah, he is concerned only with himself, and he likes having people around, because it's like, hey, this is my fun little creation. Let's let them run rampant. Let's see what they do.
And hey, they worship me.
Right, yeah, that doesn't hurt either.
Like, he absolutely, and it's heartbreaking when he absolutely will not like make the people leave. Like, he needs their adulation. And it's a really jaundiced portrait of God, which I find, again, like, as an atheist like Tim is, like, I find just absolutely delightful.
Right. Yeah. It's like, what is this guy's malfunction? It's like, oh no, I need adulation. I need worshipers. I have like this awesome creation. It's like, yeah, you also made this earth too. And it's like, yeah. But these people, they're really interesting.
Yeah.
Like I can tell them what to do, and I can like make them feel things.
Yeah. And he is, he does love his wife, but really it just keeps coming back to him. And as someone who isn't if you're not religious, like, it is really easy to read, especially the Old Testament, and just be like, Jesus Christ, like, this fucking guy, like,
he's a jealous god.
Me all the time. Thou shalt have no other gods before me, blah blah blah. Like, who cares if we fucking make a golden calf, dude?
Right, yeah. It's like, I'll give you 10 commandments, and 5 of them are about not cheating on me.
Yeah, like, and I, the kind of surface level reading of, this could be a movie about just kind of like, male thoughtlessness and the devaluation of female labor, or it could just be like a finger pointed directly at like the Old Testament God, like bossing around the Israelites or whatever.
Well, yeah. I mean, the two things mesh easily enough, where it's like, oh, like, you are in control of everything. You're never held to task. You're never held accountable, and you can do what you want. Yeah, I can see how this creates a certain kind of person, a certain kind of lord.
Yeah, and it puts me in mind of a recent series which was on streaming, which was pretty solid. I enjoyed it. The adaptation of John Krakauer's Under the Banner of Heaven, which is about murders carried out by a splinter from the mainstream LDS Church, Latter-day Saints, the Mormons, fundamentalist LDS. And, the scenes where you have kind of like the fundamentalist patriarch like splitting off from Mormonism, which is already like a pretty fucking authoritarian, like, patriarchal religion, and then just like doubling and tripling down on it. And like, you'll have like, for example, like you have Sam Worthington is one of them, and then you have the other brothers, and they're all kind of like vying for control of like their little sect. And it's like, oh, well, I just received a prophecy which says that I'm in charge, and also I'm allowed to have as many wives as I want, and also you have to let me fuck your teenage daughter.
Look, hey, it's not me wanting to do this, it's God.
Yeah, and it's those are some of the best scenes in the show, is when you see these guys like pitching this stuff to their acolytes, like, especially like the women, and it's like, what do I get out of this again? Like, it seems to me like this
Who asked you?
Yeah, it's like, it seems to me like this is kind of like all for your benefit, and it's like, yeah, like, shut up, bitch, like, do what I say.
Yeah, right. Oh, brother, you are no Jim Jones.
And it's like this embodiment of kind of like this self-serving quality of like patriarchal religions, where it's just like, yeah, like, you need to do what I say because it benefits me, and like, if you can't handle that, too bad.
Right. Yeah. And that's kind of the bind that Mother is caught in. It's like, well, I'm trying to do my best here, but Javier Bardem, like, he kind of does what he wants, because who's gonna stop him? And he has his little minions running around. Oh man, I'd like to see Darren Aronofsky do a Minions movie.
I don't know. I felt like the Minions analogy was really obvious.
Right, yeah, it's just that they're like little yellow pills. Oh, yellow. It's the color yellow coming back. He's teasing a Minions movie.
Right. Wow. Oh, shit. We figured out. No wonder he wouldn't say anything. He probably had to sign an NDA with, like, whoever the fuck makes Minions movies.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
You heard it here first. The Minions are, they're Satan worshippers. Because, yeah, they always work for bad guys.
True.
So they're probably a spawn of Satan. There. I think we cracked it.
There you go. Well, I look forward to Aronofsky's next entry in the Mother expanded universe.
Yeah.
I mean, even though he already kind of covered everything, like
Mother,
he goes from
multiverse, yeah.
Yeah, essentially Genesis to Revelation.
Yeah, because, we get, Genesis, we got, the first man, we got kids killing each other, we have a biblical flood, and it is interesting, too, like, we've got, like, kind of the first shot of man, and, like, everyone is, I know it is in the context of a funeral, but, like, everyone's, dressed in black, and everyone's, kind of sinister. Michelle Pfeiffer is great in that she just, like, kind of mops the floor with Jennifer Lawrence's character. Just, has her way with her in the way that, is, again, fitting, because it's like, this is a woman who's been, acting for, 40 years? And versus Jennifer Lawrence, who, like, wasn't born when, Michelle Pfeiffer was doing, I don't know, what The Big Sleep? What was he?
Grease 2.
Yeah, there you go.
Into the Night.
Sure. Oh, yeah, that's right.
Which we covered on the show. No,
yeah,
I remember.
Right. Yeah, call back.
I remember digging up, or coming across a compilation on YouTube of, like, Jesus, it was like 76 or 78. It was just like, oh, like, look at how awful the television lineup was this year, back in the days with like 3 channels. And Michelle Pfeiffer was actually in the credits of some, like, awful, like, made-for-TV, like, frat sitcom. Yeah, and, like, just, like, a pretty face in the credits, like, completely voiceless. And she did go on to bigger and better things, but, yeah, it was interesting to see.
Scarface, there. I could have said Scarface.
Yes.
But that would require me to be, mentally present for these episodes, and I'm really not. So, yeah, she's been working longer than,
J-Law.
Than J-Law's been alive. So that is an easy comparison to be like, who's really in charge here? Who gets to run the place? Who gets to set the pace of the scenes? And it is Michelle Pfeiffer. And that is, again, reinforcing the idea that, Mother is kind of, she's subservient to everyone else in this movie because she's, the youngest, most inexperienced one out of all of them. So she kind of gets pushed around by everyone. Mm-hmm. And it's great that, the more people that come in to her house, and the more disrespectful they are, like that fucking bit with the sink.
Yeah.
Like,
those shitheads.
It's
fine.
The sink's not braced yet. And even when she's like, oh, get down from there, and the fucking bitch, like, I know someone might say, Aronofsky writes, like, these really flat reactive characters, but, like, I viscerally, like, I've had the misfortune of dealing with people where it's like, hey, get off of there, and it's like, get off where? What is this? And it's like, oh, fuck you completely.
Yeah, on a simple level, I can see why this movie resonated with you, because as someone who just really does not like to have his things touched.
Yeah, like, it made me dislike people more than I normally do. So in that way, I tip my cap to you.
Yeah, and it really is like the most jaundiced view of humanity possible. Like, the him of the movie is just continually delighted by his little creations, but they really are just like, Yeah,
it's like, look what they do and, like, how they suffer and how they feel things and they, like, react to stuff. He's like, oh, this is interesting. It's new. Like, they think and stuff. It's crazy. Like, I can't get enough of this.
Yeah, and it's like, why would the Earth give a shit? Like, you're hurting her. You are repeatedly and callously hurting her.
Yeah, but, the humanity is this fun new toy. So, yeah, like, the, Adam and Eve get cast out of Eden. We have, Noah with the flood that, just evicts, all the first run of people. Mm-hmm. But then, he writes his perfect poem. He writes Pink Floyd's Time, and people respond to that, and then they love him for that, and then it's like, you're the fucking people coming back again. Yep. But same as before, it's never enough. It isn't just to be like, hey, that's a nice poem you wrote. I'm gonna get back to what I was doing. It's no, they just, like, this mob assembles around the house and they just want more and more, and it's great because the way that this movie is paced, the first half is all just kind of, it's a slow setup, but, sort of a, it like the tension ratchets up sort of geometrically, where we've had half the movie that's been kind of low key up to the point where, someone gets bludgeoned to death. Yeah. But then the people come back, and the thing that I enjoyed is that in the second half of the movie, like, we see, about 4,000 years of barbarism compressed into about 7 fucking minutes. It goes like from a book signing to Bedlam in under 10 minutes, which is wild. If you aren't like expecting that kind of roller coaster, although if you've seen Black Swan, you should be expecting that.
Yeah, and like the one movie where you can see Kristen Wiig just like casually shooting people in the head.
Right, yeah, that was unexpected.
Yeah, that is wild.
Yeah, it also kind of the idea of people like it never really being enough for them reminds me of Douglas Adams' quote from, I think, his book Last Chance to See, and he talks about how humans have evolved, and basically it was the idea that they started as monkeys who got ahead by taking Mother Nature for all she's got. Right. And that's stuck with me, because you see that same thing here, and it is something that is overtly explained in the movie, where it's like, it's never enough. It is the creator always wanting more. It's like, how much further can we push this? And you see that with humanity just barreling ahead, just without any sort of guiding force other than their love for their creator. And it just absolutely goes off the rails, because we have wanton destruction, we have clan feuds, we have slavery, holy wars,
the fucking Holocaust.
Yeah, they have the fucking Holocaust. We have clashes with police. We have military violence. It's like a Roger Waters album, It's like come to life. It's like all that shit in there. It is overwhelming to have all that, human history basically compressed into this space. It's just dizzying.
Yeah. And
but that's what I like about Aronofsky, is that you just wait for everything to just go completely off the hook.
Yeah, and it's and I admit, like, this is where I kind of can't understand, like, the people who really, really hated this movie, and I don't know how much of an overlap that there is. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. Maybe I'll even cut this, but I'll tell you, Tim, because you can handle it. But like the people who were like, "Oh, this movie sucks balls. It's really obvious and stupid." And then, just a couple months ago, like, I saw everybody losing their minds about Michael Bay's latest movie.
The one about the ambulance?
Yeah.
The one about the coupon?
Yes. Coupon the movie.
Yeah, I didn't see it because I saw Transformers in the theater, and around the point where John Turturro was getting pissed on, I'm like, oh, again, Illuminati. Like, there's that point where I'm like, why am I still here? Why am I not walking out of this movie? Yeah. What am I still doing here? Like, yeah. I don't ever think or feel that in a movie, but that one time, and I'm like, you can just leave anytime you want. Yeah. And I didn't, to my discredit.
Yeah, you were there with friends.
You're right. Well, that's not a mistake I'll make again.
Yeah, so like, like the thing I keep seeing, from friends that, like, people whose opinions I normally respect, who are like, okay, like, I know a lot of people shit on M. Night Shyamalan, but he 100% knows exactly what he's doing.
How does that make it any better? It's like, it'd be a stupid thing to do. Yeah, I'm gonna do that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't get it. And then you have someone like Aronofsky who, swings for the fences and, to just slam the metaphors together. Also, to be fair, paints in pretty broad strokes.
Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, he's trying to describe a lot of ideas here.
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, Tim, can you tell me, because you do love telling me about my failings. Is this a failing?
Someone has to explain it.
Of mine that I don't let that I dig this in spite of its quote unquote obviousness?
I don't think that you need to get hung up on whether it's obvious or not. I think if it's telling you something that you already know, then you can be like, yeah, I know. Like that's something that happens to me a lot with movies that other people have liked. I forget the maybe it was the Rehearsal, because I think you pointed that out to me, and I'm like, yeah, I already get what the gimmick is. You know, if you're telling me something that I already know, I can see people being like, yeah, I know it's a biblical allegory. But if you're trying to make a point that people might not otherwise have considered, that makes sense. The problem that you're going to face is that sometimes it might be an uncomfortable truth. I don't know, an inconvenient truth maybe that people don't want to know. Be like, hey, humanity, the way you're currently acting is really fucking things up.
Yeah.
And to present that in a movie, people would be like, no, I'm not. No, it's not. You know, global warming is a hoax. Everything's fine. Hey, it snowed today. Therefore, our crass and self-involved, death spiral, it's totally made up.
Right.
Because, yeah, the people who need to be told about this are unwilling to listen. And that I think is more a failure of the audience than of the movie.
Sure. I mean, to play devil's advocate for a second, like, for example, I'm into my little feminism thing or whatever. And
yeah, I thought you'd know out of that by now, but.
And I know that women are brutalized every day, like all over the planet. So why would I go see a movie which is like, hey, like, look at this embodiment of the feminine being just like brutalized.
Yeah.
It's like, well, that happens. Why do you need to be reminded of it? But, maybe that's, that's kind of a central, that's kind of the point of art, is kind of telling these stories and like embodying them. So, hey, I just made my own argument.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's like if you hate a scene in a movie where Jennifer Lawrence, as an allegory for Mother Earth, gets beaten down by a gang of ruthless people, then yeah, Al Gore has a slideshow that you're really not going to enjoy.
And
because the problem is, like, you have to put it down into such like simple terms in order to get the point across. You can't talk about it in the abstract and be like, hey, half a degree Celsius every year is going to mean the death of humanity, and it'd be like half of 1 degree, like whatever.
Right.
But if you're like, hey, if a bunch of people ganged up and beat the shit out of the earth, like right in front of your eyes, and we're a hair's breadth from like raping it to death, you'd be like, oh, I can see how that's bad. Yeah. Yeah, I get what you're saying now. Don't eat infants.
That's such a critical moment because, of course, it's after, like, she sees the remains of her child being consumed by the crowd. And, she lashes out in completely justifiable rage.
Oh, yeah. That's so satisfying to see her just slaughtering people.
Yeah. And then,
nature getting hers back, which is fine.
Yeah. And then, as she's taking this completely justified action, the response is like a horrifyingly misogynistic and vicious attack, and it's really important.
It is brutal.
That they're calling her like, fucking whore, cunt,
right.
And it's like, wow, like this fucking looks familiar, because like, again, it's not limited to women, but for the purposes of this example, or we'll say women,
Okay.
How many women every day are brutalized and lash out in response, and then are like, oh, you fucking cunt, whore.
Yeah, wow, what a bitch. It's just like I send her a picture of my erection and I get this negative like reaction. What the hell?
Yeah, and going back to
it's like, you don't even know me. You don't even know why I sent you a photo of my dick.
And there's an encounter she has earlier with the guy who like wants her number and is like, and
oh yeah, it gets the
when she's like, I don't know you. And he's like, fuck you. You're an arrogant cunt.
Yeah, she gets like the like rote incel like pickup artist line.
Yeah.
It goes, yeah, it's just like, I want you, I need you, I gotta have you, fuck you.
Yeah, like, oh, well, you won't fuck me? Well, you're ugly.
Yeah.
It's like,
why do you want to
okay.
fuck me then?
Yeah, like, you fuck ugly women?
Yeah,
like...
you have no taste in women. Yeah.
Funnily enough,
yeah.
I received a message on Instagram, which I actually didn't notice for several days.
You can receive messages on Instagram? Holy shit.
Yeah, because, you have to, like, I have to accept the message before I see it. And, it's like, I don't check them because it's like, why do I want to hear from strangers? Much like Jennifer Lawrence in this movie. It's like, I don't know you.
Yeah, yeah. Keep the door locked.
Yeah, I checked my messages to find someone saying, you are a cunt. And I was like,
someone you know.
And I was like, well, no argument here, pal. Like, tell me something I don't know.
Right, yeah.
But yeah, just like the
just some stranger thought it was important that you knew that.
Yeah, like the absolute boiling rage of a person, I don't know from a hole in the ground, but who apparently has like beef.
They have opinions, yeah.
And it's like, I don't, okay. May I help you, sir? What is this about? What is this actually about?
Right.
But, and it's that kind of,
What's
really
just going on here? Yeah.
That human instinct to just lash out defensively is embodied really well in this film. Like I said, it's it's a view of humanity worthy of Von Trier. Like,
yeah,
just completely these like humanity fucking sucks, man.
Right. Yeah. But unlike, Von Trier, where it's just like, I wrote them to be awful, and there's a point where it's like, so Nicole Kidman's getting raped again. That's fun. But each one of them has like their own like little motivation that kind of makes sense. And I do love one of the like minor moments of when after that one like tries to steal a vase and it shatters, and that just like unleashes bedlam for everyone to like start tearing the place apart. And there's this one guy who's like pulling like the molding off the wall, and she's like, "Why are you doing this?" And it's almost like out of The Simpsons, like, Bart, why are you smashing ketchup packets on the carpet? But she's like, yeah. She's like, why are you doing this? And he's like, to prove we were here. And like every time I see a news story about like someone like carving their names into like a redwood, or like spray painting their initials on a rock in some national park, I'm like, that is the exact fucker that I am thinking of. Like, why did you do this? Why can't you just leave this alone? It's like, I don't know, because, my initials are AJ, and The Rock had to know. Fuck these petroglyphs.
And I think I just saw this on, this was a video clip that went viral. It was, people, like, carving their initials on, like, a 1,000-year-old sequoia or something. Mm-hmm. And, they attacked the person filming them.
Jesus Christ, like
that's the
no self-awareness.
Yeah, like that's the motivation. It's like, oh, you caught me doing something I shouldn't be doing. Well, fuck you.
Right? Yeah. How dare you make me responsible? Because that's not what humanity is about.
No, it really isn't, is it?
Yeah. So just the people that you see portrayed in this, you're like, yeah, I've dealt with people like that.
Yeah.
I've dealt with like, hey, you can't be up here. You have to go down the stairs. He's like, oh, that way? Like, fucking, you people are awful. So, yeah, just all these little ways that you just deal with, like, just,
oh, yeah, or the guy
disrespectful, like, selfish people.
The guy who walks in on her in the bathroom and is just like, oh, just exploring.
Right, yeah. Or like the other people in line for the bathroom, it's like, hey, you can't cut the line. It's like, motherfucker, this is my house. or the couple making out in her bedroom, and then they leave, and he's like, it's your room. Like, oh, fuck you. Yes, it is my room. Just again, walking around like they own the place. The people that are just like so deliciously awful. They're just so hateable, and their humanity.
Yeah, and maybe for some viewers it like stings a little, like to be reminded. It's like, oh yeah, we are the people like tearing up the crown molding or sitting on the unbrushed sink or, just being like, fuck you, bitch. Like,
right. Yeah.
There is that, just that ugliness, which is in the heart of us all, which comes out when, we feel attacked. And you saw that with Adam and Eve, where it's like, well, we were sorry. We said we were sorry. And it's like,
it was just a prank, bro.
Yeah. And,
it's like when shitty people have their shittiness pointed out to them, it's like, you can't handle that, realization of looking at yourself and being like, oh, maybe I'm a shitty person. Be like, no, the answer is fuck you.
Yeah. And, that's part of what, throws everyone on the internet into such like awful relief is like literally no one on the internet can take a fucking L. It's very rare that you will see someone say like, hey, you know what? Like, I was wrong.
Yeah. It's like, oh yeah, you're right. Good point. Right.
And, it's, like this movie conveys that very well. Kind of like
I don't find anything to disagree with about his portrayal of humanity, just because like I've seen and interacted with people where I'm like, yep, yeah, that's what they're like. I mean, not all of them, but it's happened enough times you're like, yeah, I see the point you're making. I'm sure plenty of times I've been that person, so I'm not without sin here.
Yeah, like I know that I have. Like that's part of what makes you really cringe watching it is like to recognize yourself in this like destructive force like rampaging through the house. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh damn, like that that is a true and accurate portrayal of the worst of humanity. And the way that it just all kinds of like just the way that it all kind of degrades into fascism, mm-hmm. and like jackboots and people being shot in the head and like like wire fences like evocative of Auschwitz. It's just like, oh fuck. Yeah. Like we just like, shit all over everything, don't we?
Yeah, it's like these are all things that have happened. Like he's not making the shit up. He's not being like, oh, what's some terrible thing that hasn't happened in the history of humanity that I can add here. It's like, no, these are all things that like you can point to an instance of this, multiple instances too. Like if you're like, yeah, this is what people do if they're left to have run of the place.
Yeah, and well,
the movie goes from like a book signing to like fucking Children of Men, like in 10 minutes. It's nuts.
And like I do, having revisited the film and taken a little tour of just people's opinions on it, I can understand why someone might watch this movie and be like, what is this like fucking Reddit atheist bullshit? Like, oh yeah, like, humanity sucks and like religion is stupid. And it's like, I mean, like I get, I get it if people maybe
like
find this
religion is not going to like tame humanity. Like humanity is going to do what it does, and it's going to use religion to justify what it already wanted to do.
Sure. That's and we could have a whole fucking conversation about that, but I don't feel qualified to say it because, hey, like I'm not a theologian or an apologist or, I don't know shit about shit. I'm a dumb bitch. But
see, that's like, what I keep calling you. Sorry.
Yeah, thanks, Javier. But anyway, I understand why people might react with antipathy to this movie. They might find it a little simplistic, but maybe it's just like the technical achievement of it, and the way Aronofsky directs this, the way that I live what she is experiencing, mm-hmm. and I feel her suffering. And I know that's a thing which people tend to object to, is like the depiction of female suffering in media, but there are times when it's like, no, this is really truthful.
Yeah, it's like, how dare you make me empathize with this character?
Yeah, and whether she is the embodiment of Gaia or if she is just a woman having her labor devalued, like her hard work just dismissed, thrown away, defiled.
It's Earth. Like we set up a nice place for you, and this is how you treat it.
Yeah, and the point I'm getting at is that whether she's like the Earth, Mother Gaia, whatever, or just a woman like having her labor devalued, like her child stolen and murdered, like either way, it's resonant. It's a powerful portrait of the feminine and the eternal suffering of the feminine. Only women bleed, as the song goes.
Oh, is that true?
Yes.
Huh. Well,
Let me tell you about what happens once a month, Tim. Now, with I'll make the caveat, I'm menstruation. Well, yeah, and menstruation is not the exclusive provenance of woman, because, like I said, we moved past that. Fuck you, 2X chromosomes.
Way to keep your ass covered. And it tracks too with the Javier Bardem, is the supreme being in that tracking with patriarchy as well, where it's like, look, why do you not just tell people to do what you want and, push them around? Like, you're invincible, right? It's like, no, I gotta listen to you.
And also, like, this movie also cuts to, like, a really primal kind of conflict between men and women. Like, when she is protecting her newborn son, she doesn't want to let him hold it, because why would she trust him?
Right, yeah. It's like, you haven't had my back this entire time.
Right. And her response when he says, I'm the father, she's like, I'm his mother. And it's like, there is no word more final than that. And it really goes back to something like incredibly like primal from like, I want to say like most of our childhoods is like the final authority. It's like, yeah, there's God, but then there's mom.
Right. Yeah.
And the way that he, he pulls up that chair and then he just sits there and he fucking watches her.
Yeah. It's like, I'm God. I get to do everything. I'm just going to wait you out.
Yeah. And she doesn't even want to fall asleep.
Yeah. And that's a pretty great tense scene, because it is, she's been awake for what, 24 hours at this point after having given birth. So a little tired. But yeah, there's a point where just blinks and she's asleep. And it's like, fuck.
Yeah. And then, but they just want to see the baby.
Yeah. And I can understand, her instinct to protect, that life that she's created, where it's like, look, everything's been rotten up until now. I've got this one good baby, born of God and the earth. Well, that's weird. Just, born of, God and a woman. And you're like, look, we got like a new one. Like, this one's going to be okay. This one's going to be chill. We'll have a brief satirical cartoon about him on the web around 2001. He'll be cool, and we'll start with that and forget all these other shitty people. Just, send them away. And it's like, no, we're going to introduce this one new guy who's pretty cool to everyone. And then he'll get slaughtered, and we'll kind of have to forgive everyone for killing our only son.
Yeah, and it's really interesting, and this is probably another thing which
is that appeared in literature before, that story? I don't know.
Well, it's probably one of the things which really fucking triggered Christians is the whole when he comes to her and says, no, we have to forgive these people. And like in that moment, like as you are living her experience and like what she's been through, she's like, you're insane.
Right. Yeah. It's like, how could you forgive that? Like, up until now, they've been nothing but just nothing but the worst. So, but no, we got to forgive them. Look, trust me, in the end, it'll all be worth it when the earth is consumed in fire and humanity is extinct.
And it is that interesting duality of like, obviously the concept of forgiving someone like can be very beautiful and freeing. But the way that it gets twisted into, you see this a lot with, with people who have like suffered very terrible things. It's like, oh, well, like you really need to let go. You need to forgive. And it's like, why do I need to do that? Because it becomes like a kind of convenient out for the perpetrators.
Yeah, it's like I'm just learning my lesson.
Yeah, where it's like, oh, you have to forgive them. And it's like, well, do they care at all about the harm that they've done? And, this is a conversation that we still struggle with on a daily basis. Like, hello, like American system of justice, or like our political system, or, whatever have you, where it's like,
right.
The disingenuous words that you get from people who've done horrible things, or
forgiving people who haven't actually repented or changed or anything,
right? Or just saying about like George W. Bush, like, oh well, it's so cute, he like paints and he gives Michelle Obama candies, and it's like he is directly responsible for the deaths of hundreds of thousands of people, but I'm glad you think he's cute.
Right. I will never grok that, but then again, I am, of the generation that had to live with that. So yeah, fuck that war criminal.
Well, I think that, like, you have to think below, like, the surface message, which again is, like, why this movie pissed off a lot of people, is because, like, it's, I'm not making, like, a blanket condemnation of religion here, but it's like, okay, you have to admit that this shit has problems a lot of the time.
Right, yeah.
Like, and like Catholics in particular being like fucking pissed off at this movie. It's like, have any of you cunts like reconcile, like even thought at any length about like what your church has done, what it has perpetrated against children and women and men for hundreds of years? Like, right. I was dunking on a guy on Twitter the other day who was like, oh, like, well, there's no evidence that priests like abuse children.
I mean, just the criminal record, but
and this is why I don't usually get into these kind of exchanges on social media, because it's fucking pointless, because you show the person evidence of this and they're like, oh, well, that's fake news.
Yeah, they've already made up their mind, and
it's like, yes,
acting in the way they have. So
yes, hundreds and hundreds of children are lying about being preyed on by priests and friars and nuns.
How do they coordinate that? It's like the piss drinking Illuminati.
Exactly. Like all these, the bones of these children in like the yard of like a Magdalene laundry. Fake news.
Mm-hmm. Right, yeah. Well, they're probably put there along with the dinosaur bones to test our faith.
That's right.
Yeah, huh? This
goes
straight to the top by the organization, the shadow government that's bigger than the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
Like, how can you stay in the shadows that long? I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, like, as a portrait of like a lot of negative shit about religion, like, I'm sorry, this movie does indeed whip sack.
Yeah, it has a point that is it's backed up with facts. It's valid, and it is unpleasant to have to face that. And the unfortunate thing is that a lot of these negative reviews are coming from the exact same people that it unfortunately needs to convert. It's coming from the people who are like, oh, this movie's pretentious, because it made me think about stuff that I can't put into words. But, it made me have a sad, and I don't like it.
Yeah. Well, in that vein, I would like to leave you all with a comment on this IndieWire article about the film Mother, which I think sums it up really well. You are so lost and misguided. It is people just like you that terrify me and are going to be the very destruction of this world. God help you.
God doesn't exist, man. Like, it's just us.
I love that. I love, like, people like you are going to destroy the world, which is very fucking ironic, like, about a movie which is explicitly about the destruction of the earth by the kind of people who leave these kinds of comments, like, on fucking IndieWire articles about a movie from 2017.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like I was saying, like, it's the kind of people who are leaving this comments was like, these are you. Like, you're the people in that movie.
Hit dogs holler.
Yeah, but, they can't see it. Me, though, I'm pretty much perfect. So that's why I can appreciate this movie.
Well, you are made in God's image.
Yeah. And God really needs to watch his diet and maybe exercise a little.
Now, on the other hand, I appear to be some sort of inferior copy or perhaps a spin-off of you. So
yeah, you're the Loki series, or no, you're the Obi-Wan series to the.
I think I'm She-Hulk at this point.
To the to the superior trilogy of Star Wars sequels. God, superior to what? Or I could say you're the Boba Fett spinoff to the Mandalorian. It's itself a spinoff. God, what a fucking Ouroboros.
Ugh.
Structurally, one of the things I like that Aronofsky does, and he does in Black Swan, is you notice that he rises up the tension. It gets worse and worse until it builds this crescendo, and then the credits are very sedate, almost silent, where it's like he gives you a moment to just kind of like parse and digest what you've just experienced.
Yeah.
And I think that is a really inspired use of that sort of decompression space, during the credits at the end of the movie to like think about what you've seen, because he does throw a lot at you, not just in Mother, but in Black Swan.
Yeah.
And
the wrestler.
Pi. Yeah. He's got a way of doing things. Yeah. But then at the end, he gives the credits. He uses the credits as a time for you to like reflect on what you've seen, and it's a really good like come down from what he's subjected you to up until that point.
Oh, hi! Here's my little tidbit.
Tidbit.
Sorry,
Yes.
I was thinking about Jennifer Lawrence.
Yeah. Hey.
Ooh, that sheer gown, Maron.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
Sorry, I was thinking about titties. Anyway.
Right. Very
no.
good actress.
Did you see the poster that I dropped in the Asana task for this?
Of course.
Yeah. So okay, like the beatific image of her offering up her heart.
Mm-hmm.
I realize. I mean, it's a Christian image, but it also goes back way, way farther than that. The pelican in her piety, in which a dove, not necessarily a pelican, but
Okay.
a bird with young has torn open her own breast and is nourishing her young with her own blood.
That's hey, mom's got to do, huh?
Oh, and like that's really interesting, and that's also I keep saying, oh, that's interesting. Oh, is it, Jen? Is that why you're talking about it?
Good. I'm glad you mentioned something interesting. That's a first. we need more of that shit.
148 episodes in, I finally stumble on something interesting. But it's a motif throughout the film of and this is why like I love like kind of like the duality of this film is that like it could be about Mother Earth, but it could also just be about woman. The constant motif of people ignoring what she has provided.
Yeah, just ingrates.
Yeah. Like, and that is, I think that's why the pelican in her piety is like such a potent image, because it's like, yeah, like it is evocative of Christ, blood of Christ. Mm-hmm. But hey, wait a minute. Like this is a really feminine image, a maternal one. Like, and it's really primal. Like like it goes back to the child in the womb, like literally living off of the mother. And that's Jennifer Lawrence's character. Like she gives and she gives and she gives. And it's only when she's pressed her utmost that she lashes out. And people don't see it. And they're really delighted with Javier Bardem's characters, like, acts of creation, which is like, I'm sure his poem is really great. But look at everything that she has given us. Like, you're in her house. And it's like, oh, yeah, that's great. Anyway, like, what God did, like, did you see this poem? Like, it's fucking incredible, man. And, like, she's literally given of her own body.
Self.
And, and, like, at the end, like, when he tears out her heart, and it's all she has left to offer is her love. And I just know that there are people out there who probably found this shit corny and on the nose, but fuck, it's really potent.
Yeah, that is the crux of the movie.
Yeah, and then it just starts all over again.
Right, and that's the thing, too, that I gotta wonder, because we see, like a horror movie, we see the effects of what happens at the beginning, and then the cycle continues. We go through it, and, at the end, we don't break the cycle, and it happens a third time. You really gotta wonder, because Javier Bardem is laughing at the end. You got to wonder how many times can he go through this before he just goes insane. And where are we in that cycle?
Well, I feel like
if
that
you subscribe
probably
to, superstition.
Well, actually, hang on a second. Let me look this up before I say anything really stupid. Blah 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 blah. Okay. Gnosticism.
Mm-hmm.
A distinction between Gnostic cosmogony generally presents a distinction between a supreme hidden god and a malevolent lesser divinity, sometimes associated with the Yahweh of the Old Testament, who is responsible for creating the material universe.
Yeah, that's sort of like the blind idiot god. It's sort of getting into some sort of Lovecraftian territory.
Yeah, and maybe that has a lot to do with why this movie is such a visceral, emotional experience for me. Is it really does get you asking a whole bunch of uncomfortable questions, and it's like kind of once you get past like the big G-Meister, like once you go over his head, it's like, wait, what the fuck else is there? Yeah,
it's like that Stephen Hawking thing about, well, if God exists, then it begs the question, or invites the question then, who created him?
Right.
Yeah. It's turtles all the way down, Jen.
That's wild.
Yeah.
I don't have a really good finish for this episode. Like, certainly nothing like to equal like the rending limb from limb and consumption of an innocent.
Right. Well, I tell you what, why don't we just start over again? Have you seen this?